Think about it. The guy's been laying there for 38 years. Jesus comes up to him and says, "Do you want to be made well?" I mean, come on. How crazy is that? Not speaking to the man's ability, can you get off the ground, but his desire. Do you want to get off the ground? Do you want to be healed? Now, we, of course, do not know if in real life the man was depicted like he is in the episode, but Jesus did ask the question, do you want to? Implying maybe the man didn't, implying maybe the man had given up hope of ever getting up, or maybe he was simply looking at the wrong object to cure him. Not everyone who is pinned down wants to get up. Let me say that again. Not everyone who's sick wants to get well. Not everyone who's addicted wants to get unaddicted and healthy. It's possible to develop an addiction to your affliction or to be focused so long on what can't help you that you get stuck there and forget about that you even have a hope of cure, that you even have a hope of a better life. You end up accepting your life, your lot in life. You get comfortable because it justifies the way you act. Disappointment that is lived with long enough can make the heart sick, make the heart discouraged, make the person despondent. Jesus can't take you somewhere new if you're content with where you're at. Here's a big question or a big thought. You can't be cured against your will. You can't be made better if you don't want to get better. And Jesus always asks. Jesus always invites. And one of the things that the enemy likes to do is to get us to say, yeah, I'll change. I'll get up, but I'll do it tomorrow. You tell yourself, I'll do it later. You tell yourself, I'll do it when I'm older. I'll do it when I'm done with school. I'll do it after I get married. I'll do it after I have kids. I'm a little busy right now. I can't serve God today. I can't do this. You know what the problem is? Tomorrow never comes. The devil will have you putting off change into the next season and the next season and the next season, and pretty soon you'll be content with yourself just the way you are. The right time to do the right thing is right now. Step number 3. To get off the ground, you got to do some scary things. And maybe for you today, the scary thing is you need to stop making excuses, which is what the man needed to do. He needed to do the scariness of getting past his excuses. Jesus said, do you want to be made well? The man didn't answer the question. He said, I've got nobody. No one helps me. There are people ahead of me. Someone else took my miracle. You will always stay stuck if you're focused on passing the buck and not taking responsibility for your own behavior. This man was saying, I'm the way I am because other people have done me wrong, or no one has been around to help me, and I would be well, but they never, or you never, or as long as you're living in a victim mentality and talking about how the system isn't fair, you're never going to be able to step into the future that God has for you now. The second scary thing you might need to do is actually Get your butt off the ground. Get your butt up off the ground and do what God has called you to do when He has called you to do it. And here's what I want to encourage you with. Whatever God calls you to do, He gives you the strength to do it. But you have to be willing to take that step. And when you take that step, then you will see the power of God begin to work through you. Like when Simon got out of the boat after Jesus said, "Come, walk to me on the water." Simon was willing to take that scary step and get out of the boat, and then he found where God met him where he was at. It's just like it is with you and me. God calls you, you take the step, God meets you. Ephesians 4:7 says, "But to each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift." So take Him at His word, step out on faith, and do the scary stuff. Step number 4, listen to the right voices. The text tells us that it was the Sabbath day when this miracle occurred. If you watch the episode, you'll hear them say Shabbat. It was Shabbat, which is Sabbath, which of course, I believe, was intentional on Jesus' part. Jesus constantly chose to do miracles on the Sabbath, I think, kind of trying to provoke the Jewish leaders, kind of challenging the Jewish leaders, basically saying, "Come on, stop me. Stop me." He would regularly, because he knew that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was a time to heal. The Sabbath was a time to do good, not to do evil. But the religious leaders had turned it into more work to actually have a day off than actually working all the time. They had corrupted the Sabbath. They had polluted the Sabbath. And Jesus was seeking with these instigations to provoke that. The moment the man was healed, he had these competing voices rising up saying, his healing isn't legitimate. Healing isn't real. Healing isn't right. Blurring the issue. The guy's been lying on the ground for almost 40 years and now he's walking. But they're not excited over the fact that this man's been healed. They're angry over the fact of the day of the week that it happened on. We're going to have to choose, walking with Jesus, what voices we're going to listen to and what voices we're going to block out. It's also important to note that he was told, pick up your mat and leave this place. You're not coming back here. The mat saved his space. The mat kept him there in the midst of a surrounding of people that were just like him. He needed to pick up the mat. He needed new friends to walk into a new future. And the problem is, we can end up in a victim community that fosters a victim mentality, which leads to a victim identity. And if we're not careful, we will secure a victim destiny. This man needed to block out the voices of the people saying the healing wasn't real and stop doing life with people that represented the place he was leaving and instead begin to move into the new place where he would listen to the voice of the one that saved him, of the one that cured him, and find people to do life with, find people to sit with, people who are on a similar trajectory headed toward Jesus Christ. I have a friend that likes to say this, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Speaks volumes. You see the same thing. The power of the disciples always being sent out two by two. The reality of the encouragement of the right friends. Had he stayed there at the pool, it would have been very easily done for him to be sucked back into the victim way of life. The same is true for us. The last and maybe the most important step comes after the miracle. Step number 5 is make different choices. That's why Jesus in verse 14 found the man and said, "Hey, you've been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing comes upon you." I don't know if you ever thought about that. I'm not sure I can think of anything that can be worse, anything that can be worse than laying by a pool for 38 years. I can't think of anything. But we have to be clear here now, before I go on, not all diseases, not all consequences, not all bad things that happen to us are a result of sin. Okay? They're not. Sometimes it is. Sometimes our choices bring about bad consequences. The Bible says, what a man sows, so shall he reap. The sobering truth is this: what you do with your freedom can lead you right back into captivity. This man was warned to not make a certain level of choices anymore, because if he did, he would end up even worse than what he was. With his freedom, he could make a choice to go back to where he was, to incarceration by the pool on the ground, or move forward. And Jesus is warning this man about a relapse. What does that say for us? It tells us that a new start has to be followed up with a new plan. You not only need a new crew, a new bunch of friends, but you need some new habits. You need to make better choices, because it doesn't matter how good the seed is that God plants in your heart. If it doesn't get roots, if it doesn't get weeded and watered, if the birds aren't scared away from eating it, it will be short-lived if there's no follow-through. Proverbs 26:11 warns about a person who does the same foolish thing over and over again, and compares it to a dog who throws up and then goes back and eats up its own vomit. Jesus has set us free so we can stay free. You got to take care of your miracles. Now, I want to close with this, and I think it's a beautiful thought. What you're cured from, you get to carry. What you're cured from, you get to carry. This man was cured from the mat, the bed that he had been laying on for almost 4 decades. And when he was set free, he was told, pick up your mat, carry it with you, and walk. Think about that. Carrying the story in his arms. Had a story to tell right there. Hey, what's the mat for? You mean this mat? Yeah. Why are you carrying it? I laid on that thing for 38 years, and Jesus set me free. Holding it in his hand was a reminder of where he was when Jesus met him, and a souvenir of the powerful work God had done in his life to strengthen him to move forward. We call it a testimony. We call it sharing our story of what God saved us from. We still carry that with us because we've overcome the enemy by the blood of Christ, the word of our testimony, and not loving our lives to the end. I want to end this teaching with a very important question, and then we'll have a little table prayer time. And the question is this: what excuse are you giving or holding on to that God is calling you to get up and get out? Because remember, he doesn't have the cure, he is the cure. And that old life on the ground, it's over. As we heard in the episode at the very end, if you remember, I think it was John said it, he goes, everything changes now. When we allow him to give us the power to get up and to get off of our mat and move on and follow him, everything changes. Everything changes. What I want to do is give us about 5 to 10 minutes of prayer time, so I can get to a table. If you would, if you see somebody, 1 or 2 or 3 at a table, go to them and join them for prayer. And think about what we talked about today. Do you have something that maybe is keeping you from going farther with God? I'm not asking you to share everything. You just say, hey, pray for me. I'm struggling with something. You don't have to pray. I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, just stay quiet. People will honor that. But let's go into prayer groups, and I'll give you about 7 minutes. So get to a table and sit down with some people, share, and pray.